Okay, here's the video for page 6 of the Algebra 2 Part 2 review, so the big thick packet with all the questions on it. The first question on page 6 involves a graph of computer prices from 1980 to 1987. We're asked to answer a question here. It says find the rate of change for prices from 1980 to 1982. That's key. Explain the meaning of the rate of change. So we have a number of points on this graph, but we only care about the points at 1980 and 1982. So rate of change, that's a fancy word for slope. So we're being asked to find the slope from 1980 to 1982. Now notice that that particular portion of the line is not very straight. That doesn't matter. We're being asked to find the rate of change between those 2 points. So we have the point 1980, 4,250, and the point 1982, and we trace that number up, 2,850. And we use that information to find slope. So x1, y1, x2, y2. Remember, you have your slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that would be 2,850 minus 4,250 over 1982 minus 1980. We're going to plug those into our calculator. So 2,850 minus 4,250 is negative 1,400, and then 1982 minus 1980 is 2. So we would divide by 2 and we would get a slope of negative 700. So that's the first part of the answer. That's the rate of change for prices from 1980 to 1982. Now we're supposed to explain what that means in the context of the problem. Well, the slope would be the rate of change of the price of computers per year. So we would say the cost of a computer, the price of a computer, fell by $700 between 1980 and 1982. And that would be the answer to that question. The remainder of the page is dealing with linear equations. So number 30 says write an equation for the total cost C of renting a bicycle and riding for M miles from Beach Bike Rentals, which charges $5 plus 20 cents per mile. So we're going to be writing an equation in mx plus b form, which means we need to identify the slope and the intercept. The intercept would be the $5, which is the initial charge, and then $20 per mile, or 20 cents per mile, marks that as being the slope. So our equation would be cost equals 20 cents times the number of miles plus $5. That's all we have to do for number 30. On number 31, we're then supposed to take that equation and find the cost of riding 18 miles, which means our m value would be 18. So we take our equation from number 30 and we replace the m with 18, and then we evaluate. So we do 0.2 times 18 and add 5. That would be $8.60. Okay, number 32 asks us to write in point slope form the equation of the line that passes through that point with that slope. So our point is giving us an x1 and a y1, and we are plugging into point slope form, which is, and this is on your reference sheet, so all you need to know is how to use it, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So we have an m value, we have an x1 and a y1, so this should be super, super easy. Y minus y1, which is y minus 1, equals the slope, negative 4, times x minus x1. So it would be minus negative 5, which would really be plus 5. Down here on number 33, we're being asked to write this equation in slope-intercept form. Remember that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So what this problem is really telling you to do is solve for y. So to do that, we would start by distributing the 3, which would give us y plus 2 equals 3x plus 12. And then we would subtract 2 from each side, which would give us y equals 3x plus 10. You'll notice that that's in y equals mx plus b form. Number 34 and 35 are both asking you to write in standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are integers, meaning that they're not fractions or decimals, that a is positive, and a, b, and c do not have any common factors. Now that's other than 1, because obviously they're all going to be divisible by 1. But for instance, if they're all even, you would need to divide by 2 because they're all divisible by 2. Alright, so we're going to start off by distributing, because there are no parentheses in standard form, which gives us y minus 2 equals 4x minus 8. Now, if we're at this point, we're going to look at our x term. Our x term has to be positive, a has to be positive, in standard form. So we look at this term and we ask ourselves, is it positive where it's at right now? And the answer is, yes it is. 4 is already positive. So we are not going to move the x term. We're going to move the 8 by adding 8 to each side to get rid of the number, because there's no number next to x. And we're going to move the y term because it's supposed to be next to x. So that will turn this equation into 6 equals 4x minus y, which is in standard form. All we need to do is switch the left and the right sides, and that equation is in standard form. ax plus by equals c. But that's negative. So what? Negative numbers are numbers too. Don't discriminate. Okay? Plus b is just because we always write plus when we're writing things without numbers. So it has to be, the x term has to be positive, 4x. This has to be an integer, -1 is an integer, and this has to be an integer, and they can't all have the same factors. All right, on number 35, we have a little bit different situation with that fraction. We can still start off the same way by distributing, so we do. That would give us y minus 7 equals -3/5 x plus 18/5. But Mr. Wills, you're not allowed to have any fractions. Yes, I'm aware of that. We need to do what's called clearing the fraction, which means we need to multiply every single term of that entire expression. I don't want to write that in blue. By the denominator, which would be 5. Okay, so we're taking every term. We're multiplying y by 5, -7 by 5, -3/5 x by 5, and 18/5 by 5. And when we do that, the whole reason we're doing that is the fractions will actually cancel into those 5s, which will turn this equation into 5y minus 35 equals -3x plus 18. No more fraction. So then we look at the y, or the x. We look at the x, and we ask ourselves, is x positive? And the answer this time is, no it is not. So that means we need to move the x term. So we are going to add 3x to each side. I want that to be a different color so we can tell its work. Add 3x to each side. And add 35 because it can't be on the same side as the x. So that would cancel and that would cancel. I'm going to bring this up here where there's some room. That would give us 3x plus 5y equals 53. That is in standard form. That does it for page 6.